so this is right hand drive in my little K-truck. It is a manual car. So if you already know how to drive manual, driving right hand side is pretty much the same, except you have to pay attention to stick to the right when you're driving in the lane so you're not out of the lines of the lanes. The shifter is the same. So first is always on the upper left, and then for mine, fifth is on the upper right with reverse on the lower right. I have 4x4, so my car can go into extra low. So the one all the way to the right is extra low, but that one's really hard to get into when you're normally driving, and you have to activate the four-wheel drive down here. So it's not like you can't get in here by accident. So when you're driving, if you already know how to drive manual, then everything's the same. The turn signal and the windshield wipers are on opposite sides. So that's a little hard to get used to when you're trying to make a right or left turn. You accidentally switch on your windshield wipers instead of your turn signal. The lights are on the right hand side as well with the turn signal. Other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. For those of you that don't know how to drive manual, let me see if I can get the camera here. There are 3 pedals instead of 2. The one on the very right is the gas pedal. Then the one in the middle is the brake pedal. And the one on the very left is the clutch. So to shift, we're using both of your feet at the same time. And what you're pretty much doing is when you put it into the gear you need it to, you're going to make sure that the clutch is all the way down, and then you can shift, and then you can slowly take the clutch out and push on the gas. So let me see if I could show you what that looks like. When you are getting ready to shift, you want to put your foot on the clutch all the way down. And at this point, I would shift into the gear I need. And then I would lift my clutch slightly off the clutch. And there's going to be like a sweet spot, especially when you're in first gear, that you want to kind of play with the gas at the same time as the clutch. So you would just lift your foot off the clutch, and then somewhere around the middle for mine is when I would start pushing the gas. And then once you got that gear going and you are fine in that gear, you can just take your foot completely off of the clutch. You don't need to use the clutch anymore. When you're getting into first gear, that's probably the hardest one with determining how much of the clutch and the gas you need. After getting out of first gear, you could pretty much just put the clutch in, shift to second, third, fourth, fifth. Some cars even have sixth. And then once you're in that gear, you could take the clutch out and push the gas. So it would look more like that. So one more time, it'll look more like this. So take your clutch out and then gas. So it'll be faster. But when you're in first and even going in reverse, sometimes it's going to be a lot slower and a lot more balancing until the car pretty much tells you that it's ready to go. That's kind of hard to explain without the sounds, but I will be showing you the sounds a little bit later on in the video. So yeah, this is all you really need to do when you want to go. When you want to stop, you want to make it a habit that when you're going to stop hard, you're going to use both your clutch and your brake at the same time. Because if your car stops hard, it's going to drop in RPMs, and that's what makes the car stall. But if you're just trying to slow down a little bit, you could just use the brake a little bit and then keep going with the gas. Or if you realize that you need to shift down, you can brake a little bit and then put the clutch in, shift down, take the clutch out, brake out, and put in the gas. Um, a lot of it is just playing around with it, but the pure basics is whenever you want to shift, you have to put the clutch in and take it out. Gas is always go. And if you want to do a hard stop, you have to do both clutch and brake at the same time. Let me see if I could get a different angle here. Okay, so here's a different angle. It's kind of awkward angle. But pretty much is you're putting the clutch in, you're shifting gears. If it's first, you want to just kind of play with that. And then you can go. If it's pretty much anything after first, you could just put it in, shift, take it out, put the gas. But it'll look, when you're actually doing it, it'll have to be faster. So more like this, kind of one motion, pretty much. So another thing about my K truck in particular is I don't have the gauge for RPMs. Other cars do, maybe even other K trucks do. I'm not 100% sure, but it'll look kind of similar to the miles per hour. For K trucks in particular, it's kilometers per hour. It'll look more similar to that one than the other two gauges I have here. And that will also help tell you when and at what point you should shift, because you don't want to get this little needle bar thing too high. You never want to get it too high. So that'll help you if you do have that gauge to help you know when you should shift. If you're driving a car similar to mine where it doesn't have it, makes it a little bit more difficult because then you're going to have to do it by sound, which once you get a hang of it, it's not too bad at all. You'll learn all the noises and it'll be easier. So when you're shifting, what you're going to do is put your clutch in, and then now that I'm in my gear, that's when I would play with the gas and the clutch. But that's pretty much all you want to do when you have the clutch in. That makes you able to shift gears. So my clutch is in and my car is off, which is why I can just shift into any gear right now. But you can't do that when the car is on. Okay, so I'm going to start by turning on my car. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me. If not, I'm going to do a voiceover. My car is in neutral. Handbrake is on. I'm going to put my foot on the brake and turn on the car. There goes. And safety first. Put on your seatbelt. Okay. So I'm going to start by putting my foot into the clutch, taking the handbrake off. I am parked in a parking spot, so I need to go in reverse. My car was on earlier, so it's already decently warmed up. So I'm going to put the gear into reverse. For me, it's on the right bottom. So I'm just going to put it in reverse. And I am slowly releasing the clutch and putting the gas. For my car in particular, I can go halfway out on the clutch before I put the gas, but every car is a little bit different. So I'm going to let go of the brake. My car's already moving a little bit. I'm releasing the clutch and putting the gas. So now I'm out of the parking spot. Right now, my foot is on the brake and the clutch is all the way back in. I'm going to shift into first. And this is the gear that most people stall in. I'm going to remove my foot from the brake, leaving the clutch in. And now I'm putting my foot that was on the brake onto the gas, but not pushing it in yet. I'm going to let go of the clutch a little bit at a time and put the gas a little bit at a time. And that's how you take off. Now that the car is taking off, my foot is completely off of the clutch and only my foot is on the gas. Now I can hear my car is kind of loud for being in the gear that it is right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift. To shift, I am taking my foot off of the gas while putting my other foot onto the clutch. Now that my foot is on the clutch, I can shift down to second, remove my foot from the clutch, and put my other foot on the gas. And that's pretty much what you want to do the rest of the time. Is when you want to shift, you put your foot into the clutch, you take off your foot from the gas, shift, then remove your foot from the clutch and put in gas. So now I'm going to shift into third, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So let me just get out of this slower area so that I can go the speed that I need to go to shift into third. Shifting into third, clutch, clutch again, gas. Now I'm going to do the noises that you should hear um, when you're about to stall. So let me go into first. When you're taking off from first, that's the trickiest one in my opinion. Pretty much, you just want to hear the way the car sounds when you do that. So right now I'm in neutral. I'm going to take off in first. What I want to do is put in first with the clutch in and my foot on the brake still. As I'm doing that, I'm going to remove my foot from the brake and hover over the gas. Um, and as I'm doing that, I'm going to slowly take the clutch out. And you can kind of hear when the car wants to give up, which is that noise. It kind of like trembles and sounds like it's about to turn off. That's when you want to put more gas in. Also, if you hear your car going too loud, that means that you have too much gas and you want to put less gas. So here's an example of not enough gas. So that's when you know you needed more gas. And now I'll show you what it sounds like when you do too much gas. So that's too much gas. The car's not really moving, but it sounds loud. And you're not really going anywhere. So when you're first starting to learn how to drive stick, I personally would drive in a secluded area, if that's either a parking lot or a street that people don't really drive down. Just make sure it's fairly a flat area. Once you get a hang of getting out of first pretty good, then that's when you can practice going up hills. That's a little bit more difficult. I would also practice going uphill in a secluded area, because when you're at a full stop and you're going into first and you're going to take off, most likely your car will roll back a little bit, and you have to know how to play with the clutch and the gas so that your car doesn't roll back, or the least possible amount of rolling back that it could do. Because when you're driving in public with other cars, not a lot of people drive stick where I live at the moment. And so what happens is that they don't realize that my car is manual, and they'll get as close to me as they do with all the other cars. And what ends up happening is that I always roll back a little bit before I take off, and there's always that fear of hitting the car behind me. So before you get on hills, it's good to just practice, get to know your car really well, figure out how to get out of first, and then practice going up hills. Going down hills is way easy. Pretty much could just take your feet off of everything, put a little bit of brake if you need to. Um, yeah.
And cut.